Well, we all knew this was going to happen sooner or later, that a new UK New Zealand trade deal was incoming, or trade pact, as these are currently being called. Just as we have a trade pact with Australia, what this essentially means is that we are essentially preparing the way for a trade deal. Now, of course, prior to our, shall we say, departure from the EU, we would know everything that was going on in these negotiations. We would know what is happening, what is being traded away, what is being given. We would know everything right down to the last detail. But because we are no longer in the EU, all these trade deals are being conducted behind closed doors. Indeed, there was a vote in Parliament brought forward by Caroline Lucas, believe it was 2 years ago now, brought forward for this exact reason, that the UK public deserves to know what is being negotiated, what is going on in these deals. And essentially, surprising no one, because of Boris Johnson's rather big majority, all the Conservatives vote, we don't want the public to know what we're talking about. Don't be silly. So, of course, every single Conservative MP voted against the, shall we say, these being brought to light. And now we have another one in traction with New Zealand. Again, we still do not know what is in the Australian trade deal. I'd like to point that out, because we don't know. We are expecting it to be finalized sometime this autumn. So expect it maybe within the next couple of months. Like I say, we're just waiting to see what happens. And trust me, when we know, we will be picking over what is ultimately be, should we say, the future of our deals. And trust me, these are going to be bad. These are going to be very, very bad. And with the New Zealand trade deal, our own government admits that doing a trade deal with New Zealand will actively shrink our economy. Like, that is not, I'm not making this up. That is the government's own predictions when it has published these impact assessments of this New Zealand trade deal, that a New Zealand trade deal will shrink our economy, not grow it. It'll benefit New Zealand, but it won't benefit us in the slightest. Again, the reason why they have gone after, especially Australia and New Zealand, was because they are desperate, absolutely desperate, to try and restore the whole Empire 2.0. If you may remember, that was discussing that far back. That is why they've gone after these countries very specifically. But enough about that. Let's get in more into this news that we're talking about. Like I say, apparently this trade deal will be announced on Tuesday, so expect more of this in the coming week. But this is just the first inklings of what might be coming to affect us very, very soon. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all the people who do support the channel that way. So, as you can see, this comes from The Independent, and the title is UK-New Zealand Trade Deal Pact Expected in Days, Affecting Meat, Wine, and Jobs. The UK is on the brink of signing a new trade deal with New Zealand. Oh, get rid of that. Is on a new trade. That's annoying me. That agreement with New Zealand, which is expected to try and mirrors Britain's controversial deal with Australia over agricultural imports. The Independent can reveal. So again, the farmers aren't going to be happy about that. Two people who are familiar with the negotiations expect an agreement in principle, which is a commitment made ahead of signing a trade pact, to land next week. But there are a few hurdles to try and clear on sensitive areas, such as the phasing out of some quotas and tariffs on meat and dairy products, according to a different Trade Department insider. But they are likely to be tacked into phone calls scheduled for the next couple of days, they said. Dairy invites have also been sent out to some of the key businesses and advisory groups for briefings on Tuesday afternoon to discuss the detail of an agreement. These invites, seen by The Independent, state that Sessions will be provided an update on the pact, which is expected to be achieved and announced imminently. The language is very similar to the invite sent out to business groups when the announcement of the Australian deal was made. But while the deal was agreed in principle by Boris Johnson and his counterpart Scott Morrison in person, the cartography of the agreement will be different this time. Jennifer Ardern, the New Zealand's Prime Minister, is not expected to come to the UK until the UN Climate Summit of COP26 in Glasgow this autumn at the earliest. Yet, one person familiar with the talks said that they were optimistic that some final kinks can be smoothed out within the next few days, even if a formal announcement is made later on. A Trade Department spokesperson has said that these talks were ongoing, but we will not sacrifice quality for speed. Both sides are committed to conducting a high-quality free trade agreement that will be a win-win for both countries. The negotiating teams have been accelerating talks to reach an agreement in principle, and they are trying to make great progress. But we will not sign a deal unless it is right for British businesses and consumers, the spokesperson added. The New Zealand economy, which is relatively small, and a trade deal is unlikely to have very significant impacts in terms of the UK GDP, in trade and total goods. The services between the two nations was currently 2.3 billion last year, according to the British government. There we go. That's so annoying. However, as a wealthy English-speaking country and whose close historical ties to the UK, there are a range of services that could benefit from the deal. Legal professions are amongst those hoping to try and secure better market access, with the deal making it easier for them to practice in one another's countries. Labour mobility has also been a sticking point in the talks because of the very hardline stance the New Zealand government has taken on border controls in response to the pandemic. Calculations used to determine the country's visa provisions for Brits were thrown into question because of the border had been effectively closed to most travellers and is not expected to reopen until 2022. Still, people familiar with the talks are somewhat optimistic that the trade deal would open business travel, reduce red tape, and in non-pandemic times. Agriculture is likely to prove the most controversial aspect of the deal. In the wake of the controversy surrounding the agreement reached with Australia, the New Zealand deal is expected to mirror that with Cambria, including lifting quotas and tariffs on meat imports within the next decade. And of course, some of the interesting talks we've seen about this, the news coming out of Cambria, have been that lifting those quotas and the tariffs are not going to be tied. They are almost going to be straight away. They are not going to take place over the next decade. It's almost going to be straight away. And like I say, we will not know that until we actually see more of the deal. But the fact that that has been coming out of Cambria, and they haven't denied it, and the British government hasn't denied those rumours either, that is incredibly worrying for UK farmers. Of course, cutting tariffs does not always result in goods becoming cheaper, especially for consumers. It can make the market more attractive for exporters. The UK government said last week that British products such as chocolate, gin, and clothes could benefit from a 10% reduction on import duties in New Zealand under an agreement. Meanwhile, the New Zealand wine exporters could see tariffs equivalent to about 20 pence a bottle removed in the UK. However, retailers and suppliers might just absorb such a reduction in the face of mounting global costs or pressures in sectors such as shipping. More significant, though, than the bilateral deal between London and Wellington is the need to maintain New Zealand support for the UK's ascension to the Comprehensive Pacific Agreement Trans-Partnership, and the trade bloc of around 11 nations, which includes Australia and New Zealand. Joining the trade group is a key part of the UK's efforts to try and diversify its trade activity away from the EU from its post-Brexitness. Again, we've discussed that. That is not going to happen. Why are these countries who are in this trade bloc going to relax rules for a country that is not in their hemisphere of trade. It doesn't make any sense. What leverage do we actually have to make them to do that? So even if we did join the Trans-Pacific Partnership, how is it going to benefit us? What are we going to be able to get from this? How are we going to leverage things in our favor? Again, these are questions that Liz Truss has never answered. Neither have any of the Brexiteers before. They've just said, oh, we'll join this, and somehow it'll be fantastic. Again, this is part of the big hope from the Brexiteers. After all, their Atlantic Bridge project literally fell into the Atlantic, and now they're hoping that they can try out with this cope that's going to hopefully replace the Atlantic Bridge and make it look like, well, of course, being in this is far better than being in the EU's single market and customs union. But again, it is going the way of the EU. So I'm going to be very, very funny as the Trans-Pacific Partnership develops over time to become more like the EU, and how the Brexiteers are going to react to that. So joining the trade group is also part of the wider British security and defence effort to try and tilt towards the Asia-Pacific amid growing concerns over China's geopolitical role. Again, pointless. We are not in the Asia-Pacific. Why are we even there? It doesn't make sense. Benefits from joining the CTP are likely to be over a long period rather than the short term, according to economists. So far, the official modelling, which relies upon historic data, suggests a negligible impact of less than 1% increase to GDP in joining the bloc. Again, Liz Truss joining things that, again, don't make any sense. But again, this is now trying to try and justify Brexit, joining the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But again, that is literally halfway around the world. The EU is literally on our doorstep, where every single British company and manufacturers, trust me, in the next couple of years are going to be screaming at the government, why are we not pursuing closer ties with our closest trading partners? It doesn't matter that we go out and do all these deals with, Australia and New Zealand and try and join the CTP, because even if you look historically at our trading data and relationships, they were all with the EU. That's even including when you look at the imperial preference system, which pretty much meant us dominating the trade of our colonies. So, again, as we said before, trade gravity, it is a thing. How are they expecting to try and escape from this when you've even just seen right at the bottom there that every economist has said, even looking at the historical data, this will only raise our GDP by about 1%. What's the point? But again, that can be asked about the whole Brexit project itself. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you